Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today we are going to be going over the beginner's guide to Brewmaster. So what you can find in here is going over the base kit. No covenants, no anything funny like that endgame. We're not going to be going over legendaries. I am going to be going over a guide for Brewmaster in 9.2, which will include covenants, tier sets, and legendaries. But right now, what you need to know, picking up Brewmaster, the base kit as you're leveling, what's different from other tanks, all of that we're going to cover right in 2 seconds. A little bit of housekeeping first. Like, comment, subscribe. This is a growing community, and I have to thank all of you for all of the wonderful support that you guys have given me, and this channel has been growing so much. Thank you so much for all of that. Just it goes a very, very long way. There is a community Discord link down below, as well as a guild link for Bloodstorm. I'm sharing the same Discord for both. Come on by and check that out if you'd just like to be part of the community, ask questions and things like that. We got a nice positive community going down there. Or perhaps if you'd like to join the guild Bloodstorm on the Frost Wolf Rivendare Stormscale Vash server cluster, along with like 6 or 7 others. If you're looking to raid and things like that, we're raiding on Thursday nights. Come on by, check that out, and Twitch link down below for that. So let's get into Brewmaster. Now, when we're talking Brewmaster, there's one thing that differentiates Brew from pretty much every other tank out there, and that is their active mitigation is actually passive, which is the shuffle and the stagger mechanic. So the stagger is you shrug off attacks, delaying a portion of the physical damage based on your agility, and you take it over 10 seconds. Magical attacks are at 35% effectiveness, so you're a little bit more wary to magical attacks, but you're great at dealing with physical damage. Now, what happens here is if you're used to playing something like Prot Warrior or Bear, and you're like, oh, wait, why am I taking so much damage? Oh, my shield block's not up. I need to put up more Iron Furs. And then you kind of just fix the problem retroactively, versus with Brewmaster, you're taking that in, and that's happening no matter what you do. That's constantly coming in and working. Now, there are ways to reduce that, and we're going to get to it. But this is the one mechanic that, as a Brewmaster, and we're going to get to shuffle here right now, is Niazo's. Oh man, I probably butchered that name. Niazo's teachings allow you to shuffle during combat, increasing the effectiveness of your stagger by 100%. Shuffle is granted by attacking enemies with Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick. So, this is where we take this in mind. You take damage, it's being brought to you over 10 seconds, but then you add Shuffle into the mix, where you use Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick, extending that to longer periods of time, so you're not taking as much of a bigger dot hit over that time being. But this is what you have to kind of learn to play around and learn to instinctualize as you're tanking in higher and higher content, because you can be at 60-70% health but have such a high stagger that you're going to die and you don't know it yet. And versus I can be at 20% or 30% on my Paladin or my Death Knight and be like, I'm fine. I'm literally fine. Don't worry about it. I got it. And versus on a monk, I could still be at 60% sometimes, and if I just haven't paid as much attention to the stagger mechanic, be in a lot more trouble than I realize. And this is one of the things that I kind of had to learn to kind of get around and really bring into one another. Now, there are ways to reduce the stagger. So you have Shuffle, which reduces the stagger, but you also have Purifying Brew. Clears 50% of your damage delayed with stagger. And it increases the absorption of your next Celestial Brew by 200% based on your current level of stagger. But this right here clears 50% of your stagger. So as you're building more and more up, being able to just cut that down in half constantly is the way that you kind of actively mitigate what's going on. So very, very important to be utilizing Purifying Brew. But we're going to keep going along with the passives here because they are fairly interesting for Brewmaster, and I think these are things that you need to know. So the tank one, the Prot Warrior Vanguard, the one that every tank has, is all damage taken is reduced by 10%, and your armor is increased by 25%, and your stamina is increased by 30% just for being a Brewmaster. Celestial Fortune, you have a chance equal to your critical strike chance, very important, not damage, chance, to be healed by an additional 65% of the amount healed. Gift of the Ox, when you take damage, you have a chance to summon a healing sphere visible only to you. Moving through this healing sphere heals you for 4,000 health. Your mastery is Elusive Brawler, so each time you're hit by a melee attack or hit with Blackout Kick, you gain a stacking chance. Now, this is 26.2 for me at the mastery that I'm at now. It will be different for you based on your own mastery stat until you successfully dodge an attack. And mastery will also increase your attack power. So, very interesting there, and of course you bring the Mystic Touch debuff, which increases all physical damage dealt by 5% on enemies that you hit. So, that is your core passives for Brewmaster. That's what you need to know and work around and play with. Now, one of the things that I've noticed with Brewmaster is it's all about balance, which, haha, Monk, all about balance, where you don't want to be spamming the same ability over and over again. If the only thing you're doing is going in and hitting Spinning Crane Kick all the time, you are going to run out of energy incredibly quickly, and you're not going to be dealing anywhere near as much damage as you think. Brewmaster has a lot of fun abilities that should be used in sequence in one another. What that sequence is going to depend really on you and how that's going to work. But with that, you're going to want to weave in. Keg Smash should be your priority. Like, this is what you open with. This is what you kind of work around. It deals a lot of damage. It grants Shuffle for 5 seconds. And it reduces the remaining cooldown of your brews by 3 seconds. So this is where you're going to want to start off. Then you might want to go into a Spinning Crane Kick if there's a lot of enemies to try and touch everything. But first, you should just, before I pull any pack, I hit Rushing Jadewind, which is a talent that is basically always going to be picked. But that is what I'm going to kind of open with. Before I actually hit anything, I have a Rushing Jadewind up. So, boom! Nice AoE damage. It's not the most amount of my damage. Actually, it was 14% of my damage in this run that I did. I do not remember what it was. So here, we can actually find out based on the damage taken. Vicious Gargan, Obliterator, Echelon. That was a Halls of Atonement. So, Rushing Jadewind, you press it, it just goes, and then you can open up with your Keg Smash, and then I will do a Chi Wave or a Spinning Crane Kick, get a Breath of Fire going. Now, Breath of Fire is targets affected by Keg Smash will also burn, taking more damage. So this is where you want to open with Keg Smash, then use Breath of Fire. So then that way you're just going to add more damage and 5% less damage incoming to you for 12 seconds while Breath of Fire is active. And then, of course, you're going to want to use Blackout Kick, granting more Shuffle. Tiger Palm will reduce the remaining cooldown of your brews, which we will get to the brews in a little bit. But Spinning Crane Kick also grants Shuffle and travels, and your healing spheres travel towards you. So very, very important to kind of weave all of these in while using your Purifying Brew. Now, one thing about Purifying Brew is it's not on the GCD. It's on the half GCD, so you can actually press it really, really fast and work around in it. So I probably should have checked to see. I just came on top of the Zen Meditation Mountain here. But there should be some... Is there some dummies to hit? Are there any dummies? Alright, I found some dummies in Kyrian Land. So let's talk about rotation a little bit with Brewmaster with your main abilities. So, of course, you have Keg Smash, Rushing Jadewind, Breath of Fire, Expel Harm, which is very, very useful, Spinning Crane Kick, Blackout Kick, and Tiger Palm. Now, these are all the ones that you're going to want to be working into your rotation. And if you are talented into Chi Wave, which we will get into talents a little bit later, you're going to want to be weaving that one in. None of these are things that you're going to be wanting to spam. Mostly the thing that you can spam, as long as you have the energy, is Spinning Crane Kick. But you want to weave it in and not work at it too much. So before we even go into a pack and hit anything, get Rushing Jadewind up. Then as you're going in, Keg Smash is one that I like to open with, Breath of Fire, Expel Harm, Chi Wave, and then start going into your rotation. So there I spinning crane kicked and moved around, but you see how like my energy bar is constantly flowing, and at no point am I in fear of running low on energy, and I'm easily dealing 9k. I don't have Weapons of Order up here, and it's just going. But Brewmaster doesn't have the snap threat that let's say something like a Paladin or a Warrior would have, even Bear with the Thrash spamming. So easy 8k damage, and I'm only item level 262. I have double legendaries and things like that, but I did not use any of my big cooldowns while working it. But you can easily gain up there and do quite a bit of damage by weaving in your talents and not spamming everything. A lot of people, when they do brew for the first time, they're like, oh, you just hit spinning crane kick and you're fine. No, because if we break this down, I did weave in spinning crane kick, which dealt quite a bit of damage, but look at that keg smash damage. That's where you're going to be getting a lot, and you need to make sure that you have the energy, which costs 40 energy per keg smash, to be keg smashing basically on cooldown, which will get your purifying brew down quite a bit. So now let's talk about defensives a little bit, and then we'll get into talents. Purifying brew is your main active mitigation controller. So it clears 50% of your damage, as we talked about earlier, and it also increases the absorption of your next Celestial Brew by up to 200% based on your current level of Stagger. So Celestial Brew is kind of your main cooldown. Now, we have it here at 48 seconds. I do believe it is because of a talent. Yes, it's Light Brewing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it gives you a big shield. It starts at 18,500 at level 60, but that does increase significantly based on how much you brew, how much you've purified, and things like that. So this can be a very, very chunky shield. So use this all the time. It is a very, very strong. If you know a big hit's coming, hit Celestial Brew before or after. You can kind of work it with it based on your stagger, but you'll begin to instinctualize when you're going to be wanting to do it. But this is the button you should be pressing a lot. The next one is Fortifying Brew. 6-minute cooldown. I know, sounds big, but you gotta remember, Keg Smash reduces the cooldowns of all of your brews by 3 seconds, and you're going to be hitting Keg Smash a lot. Not to mention, Tiger Palm also reduces the cooldown of your brews by 1 second. So if you're not in AoE scenarios, weaving in a Tiger Palm more than a spinning crane kick can be very, very useful for you getting your brews down. Now, what Fortifying Brew does is it turns your skin into stone for 15 seconds, increases your current and maximum health by 20%, very nice, increases the effectiveness of Stagger by an additional 10%, and reduces the damage, all damage taken by 20%. This is kind of your main big cooldown because it does a lot of little things, which adds up to a lot of DR. Very, very nice. So this is where your Keg Smash comes in, so you can really bring this down. Another one, now this is both of an offensive and a defensive cooldown. So you summon the Black Ox. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name again. I've butchered it once already. You summon an effigy of the Black Ox for 25 seconds. It attacks your primary target and frequently stomps, damaging all nearby enemies for 500 plus 25% of the stagger damage you have recently purified. So this is where you're going to want to weave in that purify even more to be able to increase the damage of your Black Ox. And while active, 25% of the damage delayed by stagger is instead staggered by your Ox. Very strong defensively and very strong offensively. At no point should you be having to use Fortifying Brew and Ox at the same time. These, if you're overlapping these two together to try and live mechanics, you're gonna have to look at your gear situation and kind of what you're gonna want to work with, because you should not be overlapping these two at all because they're both very, very strong. Another one of your another one of your defensive story is Zen Meditation. 5-minute cooldown, reduces all damage taken by 60%. Although, if you get hit by a melee attack or you take another action after that, other than movement, you can move around, you just can't like hit spinning crane kick or something, it will cancel the effect. So situationally useful. All the situations where it is useful, it is incredibly useful. The third the third boss of Spires of Ascension, Arifrion, man, I'm bad with names today. when he does his recharge phase with the orbs. This is the perfect time to use Zen meditation, because remember, you're going to stagger 35% of magic damage coming in, and as well you're going to take 60% less with Zen med, which you don't need to be doing damage anyway. Just soak up the orbs if you're the one that has been deemed responsible to do it. Sometimes a DPS with an immunity like Turtle or Bubble, they'll take care of it while you can do damage, because an immunity is always better than just a DR, but that's something to work around and take care. Now, one other DR that defensive that you can talent into is Dampen Harm. Now, if you're used to other tanks and you're coming into Brewmaster, I do suggest using Dampen Harm while you begin to instinctualize your stagger and your shuffle a little bit more, because this is a lot more like the DR that you're used to from other tanks. Hey, you just take less damage. Reduces all damage you take by 20%, up to 50% for 10 seconds, with larger attacks being reduced by more. So, for example, the little hits that come in all the time are 20%, but a big chunky tank buster that might bring you down from 100 to 20% on any other tank will be reduced by the full 50%. This works a lot better than you think, but it is outpaced by the other talent in this row, Bob and Weave, which we'll cover in a little bit. But if you're not used to how Brewmaster works, and until I've played it enough myself, where I became a lot more familiar with the stagger mechanic and began to instinctualize it before I switched to Bob and Weave, I was using Dampen Harm, and I felt like it helped me a lot. So if you're a beginner and you're really trying to, you're getting into pushing keys and getting into that, and you've played other tanks, and you've never played, and you're getting into Brewmaster, and you're kind of not sure what to do, go with Dampen Harm. It adds an extra level of defensiveness, and it gives you something that you're already used to kind of working with and learning, and is very, very strong. But if you talent into it and you never use it, then obviously just go Bob and Weave. So, with that, let's transfer over to talents. The two talents in the 15 row that are very, very strong right now are Eye of the Tiger in pure single target. Is a very good ability that you don't have to think about. You just, whenever you Tiger Palm, which you should be doing over Spinning Crane Kick and single target, most of the time, you will also apply a debuff that deals nature damage and healing over 8 seconds. You can only have it on one target at a time, aka why it's better single target. Chi Wave is a wave of chi that flows through your friends and foes, dealing nature damage and does a bunch of healing, bounces up to 7 times to targets within 25 yards. This is, again, very strong in Mythic Plus. Also really good in Raid. It bounces around a lot, and especially Sepulchre are the first ones right now, where there's very few single target bosses where there's almost no ads ever. So Chi Wave is very, very strong. I enjoy it. Good healing, good damage. This is kind of just my stick-to-itiveness, but if you're dealing with just single target, or you're not hit, or you're still getting used to the rotation of Brewmaster, and it has a lot of buttons, you can just go with Eye of the Tiger. Even in multi-target scenarios, don't worry about it while you're learning, because if you're not ever hitting the button, Eye of the Tiger is going to win out. But if you're hitting this button all the time, Eye of the Tiger is going to lose out. Get what I'm saying? Up next is your mobility row, where you do have two really good options. Chi Torpedo, which replaces Roll. Torpedo, which torpedoes you forward. You gain movement speed by 30% for 10 seconds and stacks twice, and you have 2 charges. Very, very strong. Very fun, and if you just look at it, whee! And then you move fast, Chi Torpedo, fun. But now that, of course, that's on cooldown, I can't use Tiger's Lust. So, let's talk about Tiger's Lust. Increases a friendly target's movement speed by 70% for 6 seconds, and removes all roots and snares. Now, this can be yourself, because you are a friendly target, and this can also be someone else. This is basically what Paladin's Freedom is. So, for example, in Plaguefall, the little casters that cast Wretched Phlegm, if you have Tiger's Lust active, you cannot be rooted, you cannot be snared, and because of the damage is movement based, it doesn't affect you. So Tiger's Lust tends to be just my main sit and default, although Chi Torpedo is very, very fun. This is purely personal preference. Have fun with it. Then we get over to the 30 row. Light Brewing is just where I like to keep it. Yeah, honestly, I've looked at the others. Tiger Palm has a 20% chance to reset Breath of Fire. It's not bad, not great. Black Ox Brew, you chug some brew, which instantly refills your energy, purifying brew charges, and resets the cooldown of Celestial Brew. Now, while I was learning Brewmaster, I was using Black Ox Brew for the first couple of runs because I wasn't getting into the flow of things as well as I thought I was. I was still feeling a little clunky, and this is really a Black Ox reset. This gives you everything back on a 2-minute cooldown, which is very, very nice. But the thing is as you learn how to play and master Brewmaster, this is going to be a lot less relevant, and you can go to light brewing. So if you're brand new and you're worried about screwing up, you can go Black Ox Brew. Other than that, just stick with light brewing. It reduces the cooldown of your purifying brew, which is very, very important. It's 15 seconds baseline. It's 19 seconds baseline, 15 seconds with the talent, but it also brings down your Celestial Brew down to 48 seconds. The next one is your 35 row. This is purely personal as well, although you're basically expected to take Ring of Peace. You form a Ring of Peace at the target location for 5 seconds. Enemies that will enter will be ejected from the ring. Boom, you put it down. Nothing can come in, and as a tank, I can't say nothing. There are any mobs that are immune to any form of slow CC stuns or anything like that. Don't care about your Ring of Peace, but for the most part in Mythic Plus, a lot of the little mobs are just not going to be able to get in. This is a very, very nice kiting tool. This is a very nice movement displacement tool. If someone's kind of getting away, if the Murlocs in Gambit are running away, you just throw down a Ring of Peace and then just keep running into it like a bunch of dummies. Super nice to have Ring of Peace. Summon Black Ox is not a bad one. It pulses threat within 20 yards, and if you cast Provoke on the statue, you can taunt all enemies near the statue. If you are struggling with Snap Threat, this is a 10-second cooldown. This is very, very strong, where it will literally just cast all... You have an AoE taunt at this point. So if you're going into Mythic Plus and you're struggling with Snap Threat, maybe try Summon Black Ox Statue while you kind of get used to the kit and the rotation and things like that, just to gain that taunt. But you need to make sure that you cast Provoke on the statue itself and not just an enemy. So you probably want like a target macro on Provoke if you're going to be running this. And then Tiger Tail Sweep, it increases the range of Leg Sweep by 2 yards and its cooldown by 10 seconds. Nice. I think Ring of Peace is better. More kit, more utility. It's probably a little bit better. Now, we already talked about the difference between Dampen Harm and Bob and Weave, but Bob and Weave, what it does is increases the duration of your stagger by 3 seconds. So instead of 10 seconds, it's 13 seconds. And then all of the other abilities that shuffle and things like that all extend that based on the 13-second marker and not the 10. So if you take, let's say, if you take a 50k hit that's being given to you in 10 seconds, it's obviously going to be dealing a bigger dot than a 50k hit over 13 seconds, which is just a lot more easier to work around. Now here, Rushing Jadewind is just your go-to. We can explain Special Delivery and Exploding Keg. It's just kind of not worth it, to be 100% honest with you. Special Delivery sounds like a lot of fun, but Rushing Jadewind just really overpowers. And on the last one, the last row is High Tolerance. This is basically what you're going to be taking just all of the time. Stagger is 5% more effective at delaying damage. You're just stacking all of these little things onto one another, which really help. And you gain up to 15% haste based on your current level of Stagger. So this is kind of your just go-to pick. Pick it, forget it, that's it. Now, that brings you into stats. As you can see in the corner here, my stats are 35% crit, less than 5% haste, Mastery sits at 26%, and Versatility at almost 16%. You don't need haste. You don't need haste as Brewmaster because the more you get hit, the more haste you gain. Basic, simple, which allows you to work and really focus on your other stats. Now, I am a fan of a nice, healthy spread of crit, Mastery, and Versatility. Depending on how you get them, of course, your Mastery, as we talked earlier, increases your chance to dodge. Your crit is extra effectiveness on attacks and heals. And your Versatility increases the damage and healing done and decreases your damage taken. So these 3 stats are all really, really good to have. I don't suggest just stacking one in particular. The basic one to avoid is you just don't want haste on your gear, or you want very little haste. I've heard of Brewmasters being down to 2% haste and being super happy with it, but that's really up to you and kind of how you want to work with it. So here we've covered defensives, talents, abilities, rotation, and hopefully I've given you a good prime example of what it is to be a Brewmaster. They're a lot of fun to play. They really are. I'm dealing competitive damage with my warrior and my paladin. I just don't have as much burst damage. Well, I can't say competitive damage as the paladin, as the other tanks. My paladin's on another level right now because of tier and things like that, but whatever. But Brewmaster is a lot of fun. You bring a lot to the raid. You bring a lot of utility with Ring of Peace, your leg sweep. You also have Paralyze, which is right here, paralysis. So you get to incapacitate the target for 1 minute. Damage will cancel the effect. This is very useful on Globtrob with the big slimes. This also acts like a kick for a lot of things in Mythic Plus. So you can use this every 30 seconds, and you can also use your regular kick. So don't be afraid to use this at all. And another little bit of utility if you're looking to skip. Now, if you paralyze an enemy like this, and you get too close, it will activate, like you will get in the proximity for pulling. But if you, just using paralysis does not pull. So what you can do is you can paralyze, use your Ring of Peace, boom, now this is the dummy, it's not going to work. It will bounce it away, and then you can walk past without pulling threat. Because Ring of Peace does not pull threat. It's just if the enemy is Ring of Peace, they keep trying to move in, you can pull. So like things like the Missive Tierna's Ice Skip and things like that, very, very useful all around. Aside from that, so my final kind of thoughts on Beginner's Guide to Monk here. Oh, let's talk about Touch of Death. Very, very fun. Button that lights up. You exploit the enemy's target weakness, instantly killing creatures or doing a lot of damage. If they have less health than you, damage equals to 35% of your maximum health, and against players, stronger creatures under 15% health. It reduces the delayed stagger damage by 200% of damage dealt. So this is something that you can use in Mythic Plus if you've done a really big pull and your stagger is crazy high and an enemy is about to die, but you still have like 6 enemies to deal with. You hit Touch of Death, boom, your stagger restarts, you kind of get a fresh start of the whole thing. Very, very fun button to press. And another little bit of utility is your little monk safety port. So here, you put down your soul, you can go around, here I'm pulling, boom, I'm right back to where I want to be. Let's say there's a Venthyr Lantern here or anything like that. But this is something that you're going to want to talk to with your group. Say, hey, stay here, I'm coming back. But that's a little bit of fun utility that you can utilize as well. So I am going to be working on the 9.2 guide where we're going to be talking Covenants, Legendaries, tier sets, and all that fun stuff coming up. I hope you guys enjoyed this Beginner's Guide to Monk. I should have done this way earlier. Monk is a super, super fun class to play when you also get your own Poison and Disease Dispel, which is fantastic to have in the current M+ meta. So, thank you very much for listening. Have yourself a fantastic day. I think I covered everything? There's a lot to cover. There's a really lot to cover, but I think I did a fairly good job with the Brewmaster Monk here. Lots of fun. Very fun class to play. And I hope you guys are getting that tier gear, man. Chase that tier. I hope you guys get it. Thank you very much for listening. Have yourself a good night.